Hello. Welcome to our GovReports webinar. Do you have what it takes? A must-have for today's practitioners. Bit of a challenging statement there. My name's Kate. I am a BAS agent in practice. My business is SBFO, and I'm working with GovReports to chat to you guys about what I think you need to have considered in your business today to make sure that the job or the business that you want is sustainable and profitable into the future. So can I please check that everybody can hear me okay? If somebody can just throw their hands up figuratively, that would be sensational. Thanks, Julian. That's awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Kim. Okay, so confident that everybody's paying super attention, and we'll kick off today. Today is less about software and technology, although we will talk a little bit about it. It is more about thinking of your practice or your business as a whole, and being able to step back and take a bit of an outside look at business, because of course we all get a bit stuck into it. It's the old cliche. I'd just like to note that these are my opinions, and I try not to be prescriptive, and I don't believe that there is the right answer, just the right answer for you and your practice. Okay, so let's skip through. Now, everybody today is an expert. We have the expert economy. Everybody wants to sell you the program or the mentorship that's going to make the difference and make sure that you're on the right path. There's lots of magic bullets out there in the market. And I don't know about you, but my grandma used to say, you know, there is just no such thing. Now, how do you know in this environment who to trust, right? Who's giving you the best advice, or who's giving you the right advice? When we're talking about our practices, you know, what practice platform should I use? Should I be on the cloud? You know, should I go to Xero or not? I had that conversation last night with a very successful accounting firm, you know, and they just didn't want to. Their clients didn't want to, but they felt like they had to. So, well, why? So this webinar is really about actually just trusting yourself, right? You are the expert in your business. You're the expert about your practice. You're the expert about your clients. So you don't need another expert to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. I believe you just need the space to step back, right? To make sure you're clear about what you want to achieve. What are the goals for you and your practice, or you and your business? Do you want to retire in 5 years? Do you want to sell your practice in 10 years? That's going to be different for everybody. So take a breather, and if you do have a scribble pad or something next to you, just write down the off the top of the head answers to these questions. And don't overthink it. No, nothing we talk about today, don't overthink it and get stuck into it. These are just some high-level things for you to ask yourself in order to maybe make sure that you do have everything it takes to cut it in today's environment. What is happening in your world? So after you've figured out what's going on for you, what's going on for your practice, where you want to be or what you want it to look like in 1, 3 and 5 years time, what's happening in your environment? Okay, STP is like, I know we're banging on about that at the moment, and if you're sick of hearing it, I understand. But STP is a fabulous example of this, right? What's happening and what do you need to have to deal with in the next 6, 12 months, even if it's a maybe, that means that you can continue to run a successful practice or a successful business. Now, I personally believe that these questions always start with your mission, vision, values. And I've done a lot of work over the last 2 years, I suppose, on mission, vision, values. And if this is like a bit woo for you, I'm going to be here for 30 seconds. Feel free to turn off, or let's use some active imagination and pretend that you're on track with this. And for those of you who are into this kind of thing, I, absolutely challenge you to check out your vision, make sure it's clear. So what do you want to see in your world or in your community or in the accounting industry or in your client's industry niche? What do you want to see? Your mission, then, have a look at that. Your mission is what you're going to do to bring about what you want to see in the world. Vision is often contribution-centric. So I want to be able to send my kids to a private school, or I want to see all micro businesses in Australia be profitable and sustainable in the cloud. So they're two completely different visions, and your vision will be unique to you. Your mission is going to be, what do you do to bring about your mission? You might work exclusively with cafes in your local community to support the tourist trade. That might be what you do. Or you might do something on a larger scale to bring about your vision. But again, your mission is going to be unique to what you and your practice do to bring about what you and your practice want to see or achieve. And your values. So going after you've sort of nutted out your vision and your mission, having a look at your values. How do you operate while you're going to carry out your mission? And a lot of people throughout mission, vision, value statements put lovely words like integrity and truthful and honest. I would challenge you to move away from the fluffy words. And if you don't know what your values are, Robert DeMartini actually says your values are what you carry out every day. So you can identify your values by looking at the behaviours you engage with every day, the things that you don't have to be reminded to do or pushed to do. That will indicate your highest values. So when you've got your mission, vision, values, and let's not go really deep into that today, and if you've got a scribble pad, just jot a few things down, but it gives you clarity and it gives you a framework with which to look at the rest of your business and your practice and your future. So I think my number one must-have is at least a notepad with vision, mission, values scribbled down somewhere. Even if you don't go into it in detail, it does give you a framework. And I think, again, while it's super cliche, and apologies for that, I think your number two must-have is a plan. So a lot of people talk about planning and business planning, and you can get really into the depths of what it is and what you need. I am a bit of a fan of blowing that all away. It doesn't need to be complicated. It can be a one-pager. It can be pictures drawn with crayons if that's what works for you. But have a plan. And I think what people miss most when I'm working with businesses and small businesses, or even doing my own business education, is they plan for the future, but they don't identify where they are now. So I think I encourage you, the first step is to figure out where you are now, then figure out where you want to be. Who do you want to work with? What do you want to do? And get really specific, because if your plan is really, really broad, you're linking it to your mission, vision, values, and linking it to any kind of action steps is going to be much more challenging. So get really narrow, get really specific with your plan. I want a $1 million practice working with 5 staff members and X number of clients. And I want those clients to be in the hospitality industry. So that's what I mean by getting really narrow and specific. Some people call it niche. I think people use the word niche far too much, but again, niche is good because not only do you narrow and focus your marketing and sales and retention strategies, but you also focus your resourcing, processing and planning strategies as well. So check in with your plan from time to time. Get a plan, even if it's a one-pager, it's a must-have. But of course, if you have it and you don't check it, well, then it's a must-have that's a bit useless. So get a plan and then actually just build the habit over time of, even if you just look at it for 5 minutes once a month, that will do. Unless you want to get, super into it, which is also cool. So must-have number 3. And this comes down to having a look at our environment and being aware. Again, I speak to, still, would you believe, I speak to practitioners in our peers who don't really have a grasp on STP, and STP is now. It's real exists. So being aware of your environment, I mean, this is not rocket surgery, right? I'm not telling you stuff you don't know, but I'm hoping that we can step back and just make sure we are actually having a look at what's going on. If you're not fully across STP and STP solutions like GovReports, get across it. Reach out to your associations, go to a discussion group. There are a bollocks loads of them around, and lots of them are online. So get aware, talk to your associations, read the newsletters if you don't. Make sure you're aware of, things that are coming up like cryptocurrency. What's going to become mainstream? Do you need to consider it in your business with your particular clients? What's coming up for hospitality clients? Get into that niche, be aware. And once you start to become aware of your environment, then you are able to identify opportunities or gaps in your service offerings or what you provision for. So, and again, STP is a fabulous example. I think STP is an amazing opportunity for micro business practitioners because it's a bit of an unknown, it's causing a bit of fear in our market, and we can actually ride in there as heroes and provide a solution, particularly if we identified it a year ago and got on the bandwagon, got it handled, and got across it. Then we have an opportunity to go out and look fantastic as opposed to building a solution later on. Look at your compliance opportunities. Legislation changes all the time, particularly employment legislation. Be across your compliance risks in terms of your environment. And then look at your operations and margins. I've worked with some bookkeepers and business owners who just till quite recently didn't understand that the world was operating on keyless data entry, right? Nobody actually sits and types things into ledgers anymore, at least not efficiently. And if they are, their margins are getting squeezed harder and harder and harder. And it's not a technology, it's not the fault of technology, it's not because of technology, it's because the business environment moved ahead and embraced a different process paradigm. So if you're not moving with the business processing paradigms of your environment, you are going to suffer margin squeeze. And that's just math when you boil it down. So must-have number 3, be aware, know what your peers are doing, look at what other businesses, what's best practice at any given time in your niche industry and get across it. And if you have a policy statement about your environment, again, I'm not talking detail, I'm talking a one-pager, at least you're actually building the discipline to think and plan. So I believe that they are the 3 absolute must-haves, and what I'd like to do is just focus on some must-haves for tax and accounting businesses. Again, this is my opinion, it's not prescriptive, but I think if you consider these 6 points and do at least a paragraph on each of them, you'll identify areas in your business that you can absolutely improve. You'll be able to improve margin, efficiency, or just increase your risk tolerance simply by doing a 1-hour exercise on these 6 points. So the first point is operating framework, and we mean how do we do our business? Like, again, not rocket surgery. How are we going to operate our business? What is the framework we use? What software do we use and for what purpose? Do we use software for everything? We might use a paper filing system. We may use an old Kalamazoo register. So again, different for every business. But what I love to do with my mentees is grab the great big art books from Kmart, grab some crayons, and actually start to draw some pictures. We call it a crayon day. I actually do this with my clients as well because it builds a beautiful financial operating platform that everybody can see and engage with. So building a diagram or a picture of the business, how it works, how does money come in, how do clients come in, where do we put our databases, what data goes where, just mind dumping it onto a great big piece of paper and starting to connect the dots is a fantastic way to start to build a documented framework. And when you have a documented framework, If you're a sole practitioner, then you have something that you can hand to somebody if the shit's hit the fan and you need someone to help you in your business while you deal with a family emergency. You have got something to give someone to go, this is how it all works, can you help me? If you're a larger business and you have a documented framework, you're going to have a much easier time of resourcing, onboarding and training, because you can easily show someone visually. Most people are visual learners and tactile learners. You can show them, this is what we do, this is what we do it with, and here is how it flows in an image. And then if you're planning to sell your business, and you've actually done, I hope you would have done a bit more work on this if you're planning to sell, you've got an absolute operating framework, you have it documented, maybe diagrammed, you can actually put process documents and SOPs behind it, procedure links, and really build that out into, this is what I'm selling you. So you're actually packaging your business up just by starting today with a one-page operating framework. This is how we get clients in. This is how our business works. This is what we do. This is what we do it with. And when you're doing this, always tie it back to your mission, vision, values. So if one of your values is simplicity, right, keeping it clean, but you've got a business that has bits of software everywhere, we've still got some paper, we might be running around seeing clients. If your business framework isn't matching up with your mission, vision, values, that's a fantastic opportunity for you to go, great, well, how can I get this down, make it more simple so I'm feeling more aligned with my business? So security and privacy strategies, operating policies, I think this is really important for our businesses as tax practitioners or BAS agents, bookkeepers, or just, we are really all tax practitioners. So things you can ask yourself if you have a one-page security and privacy strategy or a quick brain dump, or if you have one that it's time to review. How do you manage passwords and access? Really simple one. If you're ever in the situation where you've been challenged for some reason, or it's gone to an insurance claim for some reason, and while we all think it'll never happen to us, believe me, it can. If you have a simple statement on how you manage privacy and security, you're already ahead of the game. You can already show that you're operating in a responsible and ethical manner. Do you have 2FA security passwords, so two-factor authentication across everything that you access online? Is it consistent? Do you enforce it? Do you have an authority to disclose policy? This is something I don't see often when I mentor, and something I always put in place. So for every client, do you have a signed authority of whom you can disclose what information to outside of the statutory, people, police, subpoena, ATO? It's a really handy document. It's really easy to include with your engagement, and it does give you a bit of professionalism, but massively minimises your risk. Do you actually produce your security and privacy policies in your engagements? Again, I think it's a really easy thing to do. It's a bit of a no-brainer. Do you use encryption software? So this is something I've thrown in because I work with a lot of cloud businesses, and they're very security conscious. They've got two-factor authentication, password managers, but they're running around with Windows laptops that aren't encrypted. So if someone steals a laptop that's not encrypted, then they can get all the data off it. And if for some reason you've stored data on that hard drive, well, there's a risk right there. In fact, that's a notifiable breach. So if you have a computer, have you talked to somebody about how you secure the data on a portable hard drive, so something that you carry around in your laptop bag that could get stolen? I think it's something a lot of people overlook, and a Windows password, I'm sorry, just doesn't cut it, even if it's a really good one. So have a think about that. And of course, in the last 12 months, we've had the notifiable breach legislation in place. Have you sat down and had to think about how that applies to your business? Now, ostensibly, notifiable breach has a $3 million revenue cap. However, if that breach is about TFN numbers, that doesn't apply. And all of us who run a payroll are exposed to breach of tax file numbers. So just something to think about. Okay, another one of the must-haves in our practitioner handbag or suitcase, as the case may be, boys. Compliance risk management. Do we have a strategy after we've gone through our security and privacy strategy, just a one-pager? Do we have a compliance risk management strategy? And if this is a lot of information, it's a lot of thinking, and it's a little bit boring. But if you put these 6 pages together, I believe you'll have the foundation for a sustainable and growable practice. I'm losing the word there, but you know what I mean. So do you challenge your insurer regularly? So every year when we renew our insurance, I go back and I say, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Am I covered for this worker? Am I covered for that worker? And as it happens this year, that's actually caused a snag. So I am now having to renegotiate with my insurer about being properly covered. But at the end of this rather painful exercise, might I add, I will be confident that if there is a claim against me, then I will know. So that is just one of my policies that I have written down, that we challenge our insurance every year. Do you notify your insurer of potential claims? So is your policy in your practice, even if you're a sole operator, is your policy to notify your insurer of potential claims? This is overlooked so often by our peers, and I see plenty of instances where, you know, I would think, wow, I just want to be giving my insurer a heads up over that. And we probably notify our insurer, once, maybe twice a year about things. And 9 out of 10 times, in fact, to date, 10 out of 10 times, there has never been a claim event. However, if there is, I'm totally covered because I've already notified the insurer. And it is actually a condition of your professional indemnity insurance that you notify your insurer of any potential claims. And when it's serious, and we have had a few serious ones, your insurer is there to advise you. They've been on calls with lawyers. They've actually been a really amazing resource. So in your compliance risk management policy that you need to have for your practice, even if it sounds like a too hard basket item, have a policy of notifying your insurer, please. And another thing I like to cover off in compliance risk management is it's actually keying errors. So we have a keyless data input policy in our practice that says if we are inputting data to anywhere, if it can be keyless, it will be. Now that means we use Squirrel Street, in my case, or Receipt Bank HubDoc. Anything that removes the input error out of data input. And Gov Reports actually forms part of our compliance risk management strategy because we do not manually input data to lodgements because we use Gov Reports to do it, which, as you know, sucks the lodgement out of our ledger. So keyless data input policy is a really important part of our compliance and risk management. It means that we're making less human error, or less human error as possible, and that we're confident that whatever's published in our lodgement platforms around BAS or IAS is actually input seamlessly through SBR and Gov Report. Another really important component of compliance risk management, which most people are actually pretty well across, is having structured and documented work papers. So for any one BAS, you have a series of documents that you will always have a reconciliation process, a declaration, whatever it is, and making sure it's consistent, stored in the same place, stored securely, and in my opinion, stored externally to any ledger environment. And that means, again, if you lose a client or you lose access to a ledger for whatever reason, you still have your work product and you still have your work papers if you're ever challenged at a later date, and you can still access any lodgement details, dates and receipts. So again, Gov Reports forms a massive part of our compliance and risk management policy because Gov Reports allows me to keep historical lodgement data and work papers and declarations in its own isolated environment. And if I had a disaster with a client or a general ledger environment broke, or my internal document platform broke, I would still have my work papers and declarations because they're stored in Gov reports. And if all three of those things broke, I think we'd probably just have bigger problems, frankly. So that about sums it up for compliance and risk management. I will throw the detailed file notes in there. I was really, really bad at this for many, many years until it bit me. And I got pulled up on, something that was challenged years in arrears. And I just, I was looking at my file notes and thought, I really don't know what happened. And it's too long ago for me to remember. So no matter what format you keep it in, we keep ours in our practice platform management. You might keep it in your contact notes if you have a CRM. You might, rely on emails, although that's, fraught. But keeping detailed file notes just as an ongoing policy. And again, today we're talking about the things you must have to cut it in today's environment. And I just believe these 6 policy statements will give you that boost. So keeping that file notes as a part of your compliance and risk management policy is a really easy one. Okay, and we're getting to the end, so I know it's just a lot of words today, and I think you're doing a great job listening to me ramble on. But this is the more fun stuff, okay? So business risk management framework, we start to look at the mechanics of our business, and, we're compliance people. We've got the compliance stuff worked out, right? Business risk management, though, have you reviewed your client list and revenue mix? In your business risk framework, do you have a threshold for, say, the percentage of one client's revenue? So if you're a sole operator or a smaller practice, do you have 1 or 2 clients that provide the majority of your revenue? And a lot of us do. And if that's the case, what happens if you lose one? Can your business sustain the loss of 1 large client or 2 large clients? If not, can we consider changing our client mix so that we have an even revenue spread, and if we lose 1 or 2 clients, because it does happen, that we're not impacted in hard times because of a dip in revenue? Are you working to your strengths? So do you have a business risk management policy that says, do you know what, I am super good at lodgements for the hospitality industry. I know that industry inside out. I'm going to play there because that's my strength. And I'm actually going to say no. I'm going to say no to other types of work. Or you might have 2 strengths or 3 areas that you primarily work in. And you may have a policy that says we don't take clients outside of these main areas. So I think that's a really important policy. Saying no is actually a really great policy sometimes. So have a think about that. Again, I don't want you to go into detail. This is a 1-pager, jot it down. What can you do, or what can you identify in your business that can be improved? Do you have resource contingency plans? So this one's for if, actually no, I could take it back. It's not if you have staff, because you are your own staff member if you don't have staff. You do, you just have you. So if you or one of your key team members, or in my case, 3 of your team members, happen to be sick today, do you have a contingency plan? Do you know that the payrolls that are due today are going to get done even if you have half your workforce, or you don't even have any if you're really, really sick? Just, again, jot it down. What do you do if the shit hits the fan for any reason? Do you have a disaster recovery plan? Actually pretty pertinent considering the fires that we have down south and the floods that we have up north at the moment, well, from where I am anyway. The DRP, or disaster recovery plan, is just again, keep it to 1 page, keep it simple. What do I do if it all goes wrong? What do I do if there's a fire? What do I do if my computer decides to fail? And in our practice, we're all cloud, so those sort of infrastructure type questions are less important. As long as we can find an internet connection and a device of some kind, we're generally right. In my business, however, it's what do I do if one of my offshore providers closes down overnight, and that has happened to me before. And my contingency plan for that, or my DRP for that, is that we have 2. So if one goes, our disaster recovery is to transfer all the workload over to another one who have already got our training and onboarding in place. So what can happen to you? What has happened to you in the past that was horrible but you didn't do anything about stopping happening again? There's always there's a skeleton somewhere. So I challenge everybody to have a look at stuff that's gone really wrongly and think, okay, that went wrong. What do we do now as a policy, as a documented idea that will stop that from happening again? And you may even consider having a risk and control matrix. So my partner is an auditor, and he audits risk and control, not accounts. Thank goodness, wouldn't want two of us. And he bangs on about risk and control matrix. And one day I actually got into him and we actually built one out for my business. And it is literally just a box. It is a spreadsheet of all the stuff that can possibly go wrong in all of the different areas of the business. And then another list of what can we do or what do we do to mitigate or remove that risk. And it's a great exercise if you wanted to get into this a bit more, to sit down and build yourself a risk and control matrix. You can Google them up. There's some templates, but really it's 2 columns in its simplest form. And you can be really eye-opening. So when you let yourself, have a bit of a run free with your imagination about what could possibly go wrong, and even if it's crazy, like if the crazy monkeys are going to fall from the ceiling kind of an idea, what are we going to do about it? And you'll actually open yourself up to a whole lot of possibilities and maybe give yourself a scare, but be able to make sure you're going to feel really confident about, things going wrong in your business. And you know what? Things go wrong. Life happens. Okay, and on to our final must-have, and stop me banging on with lots and lots of words today, is acquisition and retention. And when I've been working with some of our peers, this seems to be the last thing that we're thinking about. Or lots of people focus on acquisition and how we get new clients, but not so much on how we keep the clients we have. So some of my sales mentors will tell me it is so much easier to get more revenue from your existing clients than it is to actually get a new client. So this acquisition and retention strategy goes hand in hand, and I think it's something that you must have as a practitioner. If not, again, if not a full-blown document, but a one-pager where you've sat down and go, what do I do to get more customers? How many do I need? And what do I do to keep them and then get the most value from them and deliver the most value to them? So it's a pretty big must-have on the list of things. And if I've been challenged with this one, if you're a small operator, I've got my clients, I don't want to grow, I'm really happy the way things are, I don't need these. Let me ask you what happens if you lose half the clients you have. Now, if that's not going to hurt you and you're on your way to retirement or you're about to, go off and do something else with your life or career, that's totally fine, off the hook. But if losing a couple of clients would actually be a problem for you, or not growing, so not meeting your revenue targets or having a bit of margin squeeze would actually bother you as a practitioner or business owner, then a one-pager on acquisition and retention strategies I think is really good. In fact, I think is essential, my humble opinion. If you already have one of each of these documents, you already have a really comprehensive business plan, then at least go and look at your plan and ask the plan these questions. Do you have a constant flow of clients? Do you, with confidence, know that you will get 2 clients a week or 1 client a month or whatever it is that you know you need to make sure that you are hitting your revenue and profit targets? Do you have revenue and profit targets? So that's a whole other question. How many clients do you need? How many contracts do you need to manage to grow your revenue? And quite often people don't know the answer to this question. So again, just jotting it down if you have a pen and paper next to you. What clients do you need? What contracts do you need to bring in? How much revenue do you need on a monthly basis or weekly basis to sustain or grow your practice? And there's lots of ways to look at that. It can be 2 large clients and 3 small ones, or 6 small ones, and I prefer to get small ones for this reason. Again, considering both our mission, vision, values and are other policies around business risk management. So if I get one great big client a month, that's great, but what does that do for my business risk management policy? And then just having this space to sit back and think about what it is and what you need to do to be able to be confident that that's always going to be there for your business. Now, if you don't have that, I believe your business is at risk, and that's why I've put this in there as a must-have in today's environment. How do you then go about reliably filling this requirement for ongoing clients or replacement clients? Now, that is a huge question, but do you have a strategy? Do you go and hit up the B&I circuit? Do you have a social media strategy that is working for your business? And if you don't have any strategy at all, what could you put in place so that you're covering off this little area of confidence and making sure that your revenues targets are met? Now, the second half of this coin, of course, is how do you keep them once you've got them? Again, it's a huge question. It's a whole education topic all on its own, but there's a few things that you can think about. Do you regularly review your client status? And I don't mean whether or not they lodge their BAS. I meant whether or not your service is still exactly fitting their requirements, whether or not they're super happy, whether or not you could offer them something more value, or perhaps even generate some more revenue from giving that value. Is it something you do in a regular and disciplined way, or is it something you're kind of doing by feel because you talk to them all the time? And either of those is okay, but if it's not something you're even thinking about, please take this opportunity to write 3 sentences on a scratch pad about what you can do in your business to review your client status, on a regular and a reliable basis. And how do you then engage with your existing clients? So a lot of us, particularly sole practitioners, tend to talk to all of them every week. It might be phone calls, emails, and as smaller practitioners, we tend to have a more active relationship with our clients, and that's fantastic if that's how you would like your business to be now and in the future. And if that's how it is now and you're a sole practitioner and you plan for it to always be that way in the future with other people in your practice, then let me ask you to think well and hard about how you're going to achieve that. Because I've got lots of the how not to's. If anyone wants to know how to not achieve that as you grow your practice, I'm your girl. I can tell you lots about how to not to do it. But we particularly as small practitioners, we tend to be very naturally engaging with our clients. But as we grow a practice, we may consider newsletters or video newsletters or vlogs or blogs or any other sort of leveraged method that is both engaging with our clients but also effective and offering value and making sure that our clients are experiencing something really awesome from our business. And so my final and most important, absolutely, if the rest of this shit bored you to tears, do this one. You have to have an implementation and action strategy. And when I say have to have, again, I mean even if it's just something on a sticky note on the side of your computer, but again, better off a planned implementation documented strategy. I call it NICET. If anybody doesn't know what that means, I don't know that we can be friends. But check out the One Thing podcast if you're ever struggling with taking action, if you're ever struggling with, I know maybe you've sat there this whole webinar and you've gone, yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, I really should do that. I'm so guilty of that. I do it all the time. But I've had to actually start to implement some action strategies. So I actually now have a policy document around action. I listen to the One Thing podcast by Jeff Woods all the time. Brilliant. If that's your thing, go nuts. If you love it, that's great. If not, that's also cool. Consider the 1% rule. So the 1% rule means that if we improve something by 1% on a regular basis, you'll actually get far more momentum over time than you will if you go and do a great, today I'm going to do my policy statements and my must-haves. I'm going to sit down and go and all do them all today. If you actually did 15 minutes every day or 1% every day on an ongoing basis, we'd have far more momentum and far better results. So that's something to consider. Time blocking is another strategy that we have on our implementation action strategy policy statement. Getting my words again. And that's just simply blocking a certain set time on a regular and inflexible basis where you'll do your retention strategy, or you'll do your business planning, or you'll review your KPIs. Okay, so again, not rocket surgery, but it's a Nike thing. You've just got to do it. If you just do it, then you'll start to see momentum. And I'm just going to finish off with don't think about it, do it. We've just chatted about a lot today. There's probably a lot to think about. It might have borne you to tears. But I think if you don't have these things in your practice, it's something that you could consider doing to improve the longevity and resilience of either, your job, your sole practice, or a larger practice. Just do it. And that might be, as I've suggested, grabbing a notepad, writing down some of the answers to these challenge questions just as you're listening to this webinar, and then building momentum from there. Looking at it tomorrow, looking at it again the next day, spending 5 minutes the day after, making a phone call, shooting off an email to your insurer, shooting me an email at GovReports if I can help you with anything that we've spoken about today. Which brings me to the end of my rather long, verbally heavy webinar today. I'd love if you reached out to me or gave us a call at GovReports to see how GovReports can actually help you in any of your risk or business management policies, or even just helping your practice to operate more efficiently and getting some margin back into your service delivery. I'd love to hear if anybody's got any questions. I know that this one has just been a stack of information, is a little bit less interactive. And generally I don't like to, just talk and talk and talk, but had to get this one out today, had some things to say. So we're always really happy to have you get your questions through and to talk to you about your practice, or how GovReports can help your practice achieve what you want it to achieve, and help you achieve your mission, vision and values. So I'm going to hand over to Tiana just to see if we do have anybody who wants to maybe tighten some of the screws that I've got a bit loose.
Glad to say that we don't have any questions so far. An appreciation from Kim and...
oh, thanks, Kim.
Yeah, so we're still waiting for questions, and I've got another message from Shannon. Well, has been incredible. I don't have any questions as my mind is swimming.
Sorry, buddy.
Hopefully we'll be...
Sorry, guys.
Off webinar, so I can rewatch with a planning mode. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely recordings of these webinars come out. And look, for everybody who's been on the call, thank you so much. If something just rattles out of your head later, hopefully you're not, going cross-eyed. If something pops up at 3 in the morning, don't call me at 3. I won't answer, but do shoot me an email, even if it's just a one-liner, what about this? I'm really happy to engage with you guys and just have a chat about practice. As I said earlier, I'm no expert, but I'm in the trenches with you guys. I've been doing this gig for about 15 years. I'm still here, just sometimes, so really happy to chat. Thanks, Suzanne. Appreciate it. Yes, everyone will get a copy of the webinar, and the slides, I believe, are going out as well, Tiana, on this one.
Yep, sure. Well, it looks like that's it.
I think I've scared everybody. Sorry. Into submission. It's all great. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate your attention today. Thanks for bearing with me through a very long, very word-heavy webinar today. reach out, kate@govreports.com.au, give us a call, and I look forward to hearing from all of you really soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good afternoon.